I've been asked to clarify the distinction between projection and projective identification in Kleinian theory, and more broadly in psychoanalytic theory as such. There's a lot of misunderstanding here. The idea of projective identification as an interpersonal process has widely been attributed to Mrs. Klein, which is a mistake. By projective identification, Mrs. Klein meant projection, but she had in mind a slightly wider understanding of projection than the Freudians. For Freud and the Freudians, projection meant within a one-body psychology, A's idea that B contains ideas or impulses. Projection is A's imagination of what's going on in B. Some men are reluctant after the movie to line up at the urinals because they have the idea that the men on either side of them might be sneaking peeks at their penis. So they have to go into a stall to urinate. So that may well be a matter of A's projection of his own rather homoerotic interest in other men's penises onto other men. And so he's seeing men as interested in him, and this may well be his projection. Now, none of this concerns any effect of A's thoughts or feelings on B. It's purely about the mind of A. A has the fantasy that B has ideas that A is projecting, but none of this concerns B. Okay, that's projection. Kleinians broaden their sense of projection, though it's still essentially a one-body process. But instead of just projecting impulses, the Kleinians are alert to a much broader range of things being projected. Self-images, images of other people, and so on. So projection is a somewhat broader in content for Kleinians rather than Freudians. Now, the confusing factor is that when Klein uses the term projective identification, she's still really referring to projection. She's still really referring to a one-body psychology. And she remained very suspicious of the interpersonal use of this idea. So famously, one of her supervisors came to her and said that his patient was projectively identifying her confusion into him, into his mind. Klein says, "No, dear, you're confused." In other words, don't attribute your own subjective problem to your patient. It's your problem. It's got nothing really to do with anything your patient is doing. You need to go back into analysis, talk to a supervisor, sort out your countertransference problem instead of attributing your countertransference problem to your patient. So even though she uses the term projective identification, she really means a one-body psychology in which A is projecting something into B, and this does not concern any effect on B. Okay, it was Wilfred Bion who took the step to interpersonal projective identification. And this is a more complex problem. The example I use is some patient arrives, and as he comes in and passes me in my chair to go to the couch, he mutters, "Wrong side of the bed?" I say, what? Well, I mean, did you get out of the wrong side of the bed? You're obviously grumpy today. I'm saying, what? Well, listen to how defensive you are already, he's saying. Guess what's happening? I'm getting angry. Apparently this guy thinks he knows what's going on in me better than I do. Okay, that's a good example of projective identification. He's projecting his anger into me. I'm not angry. But his assumption that I am and his behavior towards me, as if he's right, as if I am angry, is making me angry. Another good term for this is emotional induction. He is emotionally inducing me to be angry. And this often works. That is interpersonal projective identification. That has nothing to do with Melanie Klein. That is Wilfred Bion. Okay.